everybody, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Kaylee. Thank you for clicking on this video. Today I thought I would go over wedding tips and tricks. Maybe not tricks, but I don't know, just tips and things that I wish I would have seen or heard about during the process of planning my wedding. These might be similar to ones you've heard before, and they might be completely new to you, but these are some of the things that I thought were the most important things to think about when planning your wedding. I wrote them down, that way I don't forget exactly what I want to say. If you are engaged, an upcoming bride, you're planning a wedding, you hope to plan a wedding in the future, you know somebody who's planning a wedding and want to give them some tips and tricks, or if you're just curious and you just want to watch this video, this is a great video for you to watch. So let's get into it. So my first thing, like the first thing I ever thought about when I was engaged, and anybody you talk to will most likely say this is your number one thing that you need to do. You of course need to get a venue planned and picked out. That way you can get your wedding date planned and picked out. Unless you're doing it at a family owned place or house or whatever, you are going to have to go to your venue or look at venues and then pick your date based on what dates they have available. So if you are going that route, this is a tip for you. When you're looking at big wedding venues or just wedding event places, most places will give you a discount if you do a non-peak day or non-peak season. It will save you money. Most wedding and event places charge their main, set price on Fridays, Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. So if you pick a day during the week, which I know is typically harder for people, but if you want to save some money, pick a day during the week. And some places will actually have a discount for Sundays as well. For our wedding venue in particular, there was a discount that you could do if you wanted to have your wedding on a Sunday. It was a pretty nice discount. Obviously, each place is going to vary, but it was a nice discount if we did it on a Sunday. So guess what? Our wedding was on a Sunday. But it's a really nice thing to think about if you are wanting to save some money here and there, because your venue is going to be a good chunk of your budget, sadly. Unless, like I said, you're going to be doing it somewhere that is family owned, or you can find somewhere that is not going to be as much. But if you're actually going to a wedding venue or event center, it is going to be a good chunk of the price. So that's something to think about. A non-peak day or non-peak season, depending on the type of venue, is going to save you a lot of money. That was my biggest thing, was finding a venue and looking to see if they had options where we could get some sort of discount. That is a big thing. And of course, venue and date is typically our number one. So definitely look at that when you're looking into venues. Also, another thing, I did not write this down, but I'm thinking about it as I'm talking about venues. Something to really think about when you're picking out a venue. Do they require you to have their catering and or bartending services? It's definitely something to think about, because a good chunk of wedding venues that I looked at least in the California area that we were going to get married in, a lot of them required you to use their catering services, which is fine. It is helpful in not having to reach out and research other things. Like, it takes a lot off your plate if they're like, this is what we serve, pick from this menu. It does help. But if you are looking for something a little bit different, unique, a food truck, maybe you're a vegetarian and you would rather go a different option. I don't know. Maybe you have certain health restrictions and you just want to go a different way. Who knows? Maybe you just want to be different. Our venue, we were able to bring outside vendors and stuff like that, which ultimately I think saved us money, because we were able to go through an outside, like a restaurant, and do a catering from them. Also, bartending, we were able to bring our own, alcohol from outside and other beverages. They did have restrictions on what we could and couldn't bring. So you can't bring this specific venue that we had. You could not bring hard liquor, but you could do pretty much anything else, which was totally fine for us. If you don't mind using their services and you think it's going to be easier and you don't mind what they offer, then definitely go for it, because I believe it will save you a lot of time and a lot of stress just going through them. But I did not want the least stressful option, of course, so I did an outside vendor. To each their own, but definitely look at that and think about that when looking at venues. Kind of bouncing off the last one. My second, I guess this is now my third, but something to also think about. Where do you want to get married? Do you want to get married local to you? Do you want to get married, maybe you don't live near your family and you want to get married near your family? Maybe you want a destination wedding. Those are all things to think about. For us, we live really far from all of our family. I wanted to have my wedding in California, which is where I'm from, and majority of my family and friends are from there and live there. But we do have friends and family members who also don't live in California, and we have to travel as well. So that's something to think about. If you're having a destination wedding or a wedding where people are going to have to travel, definitely think about getting your save the dates and your wedding invitations out sooner than you would if it was just nearby and local, because you have to put into consideration that people are going to have to get hotels, people are going to have to get plane tickets or train tickets, or however they're going to travel. Maybe they're going to road trip it. You just need to give people that time to prepare and plan in order to be at your wedding. Okay, tip number 4, who is going to be setting up your wedding? This is something that I feel like is common sense, but we, like me and my mom and whoever, like we did not really think about this in the process of planning things. At least I feel like this is a duh thing. Like, your wedding has to be set up, but who's gonna do it? And I kept saying, like, you know, we are gonna do it, like my family, the wedding party, because we had our wedding on a Sunday. We were not able to set up the day before, obviously, because they had an event the day before. Makes sense, it's a Saturday. So we had to set up the morning of, and because we had a Sunday wedding, it was an earlier wedding. It just made sense for us to have an earlier wedding. That way, if people wanted to travel back home that night, they could. So we had to wake up extremely early to start getting ready, makeup, hair, just setting the whole venue up. And luckily, we had an amazing wedding party and everybody helped out. You know, while us girls were getting ready and stuff, all the groomsmen were doing things, my in-laws, my mom. I had a man of honor, and so of course he didn't have to do all the little nitty-gritty makeup and hair things, so he was helping. It was just really helpful to have people to set up. But also, you need to think about that. Do you have a wedding coordinator? Are they going to be helping as well? We had one, and they helped us, which was really nice, you know, set up and break down. But definitely think about it. Who's going to be doing it? Because as a bride, you're not going to want to be doing it because you have other things that you're doing, and you also don't want to have to think about it the day of and stress about who's getting things done. Like I said, luckily we had a great team of people, and my mom and I have been in communication about the wedding and things I wanted and inspiration photos and setting things up in advance at my mom's house and taking photos of it. That way she knew exactly how I wanted things to look, and she could relay that message to other people, to the people who were helping us set up. That way everything was done, you know, the way I dreamed, and it looked great and everything. So that's definitely something to think about as well. I feel like it's an obvious one, but it's something that can be very easily overlooked if you're not thinking about it and you're caught up in everything else that comes with planning a wedding. I'm kind of moving into 2 different things that I highly recommend. So the first thing that I highly recommend, invest in a great photographer. The day goes by so quickly and it only happens once. Yes, Brecken and I were there and we lived it and we enjoyed it in the moment, but just when everything's going on and you are being told, okay, it's time to cut the cake, okay, it's first dance, okay, it's this, okay, we're gonna do speeches, okay, it's time to eat. There are a lot of things that are fit into a certain time frame. Like typically weddings are 6 hours. When you're doing it at a normal venue, they limit you to that 6 hours. So there's a lot that you have to fit into that 6 hours. The ceremony, you know, all of the other little things that I just mentioned, there's a lot. First dance, you know, you want to do all these special things like the garter toss, the bouquet toss, you know, there's just a lot, but you also want to enjoy the day. I highly recommend investing in a great photographer, because even though we were there and we lived it and we had a great time, it does fly by really fast. And so being able to look back at those photos and see the day and kind of relive it again is really nice. And luckily we found a really great photographer, and we didn't have to pay for a second photographer because of how many people we had at our wedding. We didn't have a lot. It was under 100, and she was able to capture every single moment of our wedding, and it was really nice. So even though photographers cost a good chunk of money, highly recommend. The second thing I highly recommend is making a wedding website. So we sent out invitations, of course, but within our invitations, of course, you have all the details, where it's at, if you have a wedding dress code, I don't know, just your registry, stuff like that. Well, we did put that in our wedding invitations, but we also put our wedding website in a QR code that sent you directly to our website if people wanted to do it that way. It's just really nice to have somewhere where you can have all the details just to remind people in case they lose their invitation, or you never know. And it's just, personally for me, I thought a website was easier. Plus we had everybody RSVP on our website, which was really nice. So we didn't have to worry about looking out for all of these RSVPs back in the mail. I was able to go online and see who RSVP'd. We were also able to request song requests. And again, we had people who were not from the area, people who traveled from out of state, because we had a Sunday wedding. A lot of people were there for the weekend. We were able to put, these are some hotels that are near our venue. This is the closest airport. These are some fun local towns and things to do in that surrounding area in case people were visiting and they wanted to explore while they were there. It was just really, really nice and really helpful, and I really recommend it. Now, going more into the nitty-gritty details of the wedding, things that you need to think about that can feel overwhelming or can just feel like you can easily oversee it. Like you might miss it with the chaos of planning a wedding. So little details to think about. These, of course, might be common sense things, but to me, these were things that were left, I wouldn't say last minute, but very close to the end of our planning and really close to the wedding. So little things. Are you gonna have an arch? Which a lot of people think about. I feel like arches are a big thing. Does the wedding provide an arch, or do you need to provide your own? What are you gonna put on the arch? That was a big one for me, which we kind of left last minute. I didn't want anything big or extravagant. I wanted something really small, and I knew what I wanted, like the look of it and the vibe, but actually finding those things to make my inspiration pick come to life, we did kind of leave till last minute. But I think it turned out great. I don't know if I said this, but I will try to incorporate like different pictures throughout this video of things that we did. Are you going to line the aisles? That is also a big one that I feel like can be overmissed. I feel like I'm a little more simplistic or minimalistic. I wanted my wedding to be nice but minimal. I personally like the look of that. I don't like very over the top. It's not very me in my decorating style and stuff like that. Super simple. I wanted neutral colors, very earthy. I also really loved our venue. It was a dream venue, and if I could pick all over again, I would pick it again. But it was such a beautiful outdoor venue that I didn't want to overcompensate with all these decorations and really big table centerpieces and stuff like that. So for me, I didn't feel like lining the aisle. That just wasn't me, didn't feel like me. Most people do it, but you don't have to do what everyone else does. So just think about that. Are you gonna line it? Do you want big vases with giant flowers coming out, or do you just want simple petals going along the sides? Also, something I did not think about jewelry. So I was really on top of what I wanted for my bridesmaids, and I really wanted them to have miscellaneous dresses just because, again, I'm not super over the top formal. And I wanted my bridesmaids to feel comfortable, and I wanted them to maybe get a dress that they could rewear in the future since they were buying their dresses. But when it came to me, I totally forgot to think about my jewelry and what I was gonna wear with my dress. So I was very on top of the wedding party and what they needed, but I kind of forgot about myself, and I ended up not bringing any necklaces. I didn't bring any jewelry whatsoever. I don't wear earrings, so I didn't have earrings. All I wore were my rings because I did not think about it, which is fine. It's not a big deal and it didn't upset me at all. But when I was there in the moment, I was like, wow, I totally forgot. Keep that in mind as well. Don't forget about yourself, brides. Don't forget about yourself when you are planning out your wedding. Don't forget. I don't know if other people forget, but I definitely put myself on the back burner a little bit. A few things that we did to save money. A little bit. Our wedding was big. It was still a dream wedding, and it still had everything I wanted, and it had, you know, the little small details, and it was beautiful. But there were a few things that we did to try and cut back on cost a little bit. And some of these are gonna be a repeat of venue and catering and stuff like that. But the venue. So the venue we picked, again, we chose a Sunday, so they had a Sunday discounted rate. That saved us a little bit of money. Also, the venue I picked, they did not provide much. They provided tables, chairs, the basics, but everything else was up to us. They didn't have any services, which ends up being more work, but it ended up saving us more money because I didn't have to go through them and pay those prices. I was able to research and see what I wanted and get exactly what I wanted and at the price that I really wanted. So our venue was really, really nice. I didn't feel like I had to overcompensate with a bunch of decorations because the venue itself was just beautiful. But because I picked a venue that already was my vibe and already was what I wanted, I did not feel like I had to go overboard with other things, which was really nice. Another thing, I feel like this is becoming more trendy, I guess is the word, but we did not have a typical big giant wedding cake. And that's for many reasons. One, we're not the biggest cake people. So we didn't want to spend a bunch of money on a cake that we didn't feel like we would enjoy. I'm sure our guests would have enjoyed it, but instead of having a big giant cake, we did a single layer cake, just a super small white one that went with my aesthetic, just for us to cut and for the photos. But we ended up getting cupcakes for our guests that we just had out on a dessert table instead. And that dessert table had those cupcakes. It had cookies. It had, I don't even know. I can't even remember at this point. But we had a bunch of different desserts that we had on a dessert table versus paying for a really big expensive cake, which I feel like saved us a lot of money. Because if you've ever looked into buying or having a wedding cake made, they can get really expensive, and it just didn't feel worth it for me. So we did the dessert table alternative, which I feel like is getting more and more popular, but it really does help and it really does save you money. And I've seen a bunch of different ways to do dessert tables. It doesn't just have to be dessert table. Like, I've seen some that are donuts and they make it a really cute theme for the wedding. Or I've seen cookie bars, or I've seen sundae bars, or there's just different things to do to customize it to you. But doing that type of alternative could definitely save you money. Something else, which I feel like is also becoming more and more common just because it's a certain look. It's more minimal, it's less money. I did not want big, giant centerpieces. It didn't feel like me, it wasn't my look, and it can cost a lot of money to pay for florals for giant, big centerpieces. Instead, I Pinterest a few like minimal table centerpieces or wedding centerpieces and ended up finding a few different pictures that we kind of put together into one to create my centerpieces. And I really love my centerpieces. I love how they looked out. I feel like they went with the theme, the vibe, and it did save us a lot of money doing it that way versus buying all these big florals in this big overdone centerpiece. And at the end of the day, nobody is going to leave your wedding and talk about your centerpieces. Or even remember in 5, 10 years, 20 years, when we look back at our wedding photos, we're not going to be thinking about the centerpieces at all. So we did what we wanted. It matched our theme. It went with our wedding, but it wasn't our main focus. We had other things that we decided to focus on more than the centerpieces. And again, I would not go back and change anything about that either. So that's all I really have written, but there are so many other tips and tricks that I did not mention in this video. This is just things that I thought were important from my personal experience having my wedding this past October, so October of 2022. I hope you were able to take something from this, and if you weren't, I hope you at least enjoyed it. And I want to thank everyone for watching this video. It means the world to me that you clicked on this and watched it. If you made it to the end, thank you even more, because that means so much to me. I want to try something. If you made it to the end of this video and you hear me talking right now, comment down below the wedding ring emoji. I'm just really curious to see who made it this far and who is still watching all the way to the end. But again, whether you watch my videos all the time or you are new here, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe this video if you enjoyed it. If you have any requests for other videos or something that you would love to see me do, go ahead and comment that down below as well. I'm always looking for input and new ideas. So again, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.